our world just crumbled. We lost the church, we lost our marriage, we lost our way. I came from a pastor's home, and then I go into being a pastor's wife, and I thought, I've done this Jesus thing, I'm gonna try the world. And I got caught up with all the wrong crowd, doing the wrong things, medicating my pain. I thought I was living the life, and I'm over here, I find myself pregnant, I'm at the rock bottom. There's moments where you don't know how you're gonna get past this day.
From that place of pain that is now healed, he ministers through it.
A hopeless situation, it's not beyond hope. God's got you.
All right, welcome back to the Rebecca Weiss podcast. I am with Melissa, who, fun name, by the way, but you're a pastor at the Rock Church in Arizona, but you've been pastoring in ministry for how many years now?
Well, altogether, oh my goodness, probably 35 or 36 years, but there is that break that we took in between. We pastored for 7, then we took about a 4-year break, and then we have been pastoring 28 years this March.
So guys, you're going to want to stay tuned for this because this is quite a story.
Yep.
And it's a redemption story.
Yes.
And I love hearing people's testimonies. To me, testimonies are some of the most encouraging things people can hear because it's just no one can argue with your own personal story and see what God can do with someone's life and working it all together. And this woman has been through it, and she's been tried and tested, and she's come out even better because of it. So let's get into the story.
Love it.
Start where you want.
Well, everybody has a story. That's what's beautiful is I feel like in my lifetime, I have experienced so many different things, but every single one of them has pointed me to help people in whatever journey they're at, whether it's abuse. I mean, I started out and I was molested at 9 years old, and then I went into a marriage at a really young age. We got married when I was 10 days out of high school.
What?
Yeah, crazy, I know, but we just were so in love, and we thought we had all the answers and we were going to just change the world. And so we dive headlong into ministry right away because he comes from a pastor's home. I come from a pastor's home. We think we know it all. So we start pastoring, and after 7 years of pastoring and 10 years of marriage, our lives just started crumbling. I mean, we were broken, and we didn't realize how broken we were, and we didn't get fixed, and we didn't do the right things necessary because we were pastors, and we didn't feel like we had the ability to go to anybody. We were hidden in our secrets and our struggles and our pain, and it wasn't really looked as a positive thing back then to get counseling. It was actually very taboo, and only the really sick people or the mental health or whatever that looked like back then, those are the only people that actually saw counselors. And so we were like, okay, so we just have to try to figure this out on our own, and we didn't do any of the right things. We are the perfect example of what not to do, is what I tell people. And so we're in this marriage, and my husband and I, we're broken, and we're lost, and we're empty inside. And when you're empty inside and you're lonely and you're hurting, you possibly will fill yourself up with the wrong things. And that's really what we did. And we looked to other things to fill our lives. And he looked to another relationship, and so did I. And we just literally fell apart. My husband, in the last years of our marriage, was acting really abnormal. And I knew he wasn't sleeping. I knew he was in deep depression. He's the life of the party most of the time, but then he would crash and burn, and he would be depressed in bed, and I couldn't get him out of bed. And I was like these really huge highs and really low lows. And I thought, there is something wrong with you. But back then, once again, mental health wasn't well known about. And so he was eventually diagnosed manic depressive bipolar. And our world just crumbled. We lost the church, we lost our marriage, we lost our way. I came from a pastor's home, and then I go into being a pastor's wife, and I thought, I've done this Jesus thing, I'm gonna try the world. And I literally went into the clubs and started drinking, and I started doing crystal meth. there is a saying that says, who you surround yourself with, who your friends are, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And that really was true for me. I got caught up with all the wrong crowd, doing the wrong things, medicating my pain. I thought I was living the life, and I thought, this is really me, and this is who I've not been able to be all my whole life, and this is really so much fun. And there is fun in sin for a season. That's what the Bible says. But then it started spiraling and coming crashing down, and it just led me down a path of drugs and sleeping with guys and just all the wrong things to try to medicate my pain. And I found myself addicted, sad, lonely, broken, and I was pregnant. Well, my husband on the other side, he was, of course, finding his own journey of health, and God miraculously took him through a healing journey for his mind. He went through a process of just putting the word of God in his heart and in his mind and renewing his mind and putting scriptures in. And he has his own journey and his own story to tell, but God literally miraculously healed him from being manic depressive bipolar. He's been 30 plus years. He has not had an ounce of depression or anxiety and hasn't had medication, and God just has miraculously healed his mind and his emotions. So he's over here getting his healing journey and finding, his path, that he really wanted his family back. He wanted his life back. He wanted to be, everything that Satan had stolen and what he had done himself to himself. And I'm over here, I find myself pregnant. I'm at the rock bottom. And I literally went to be with him because we had joint custody with the boys, and he lived in California and I lived in Arizona. So I had to go and be in California with him to visit the boys and be with the boys. And I just was in a very unhealthy place. I had just had the abortion. I was a mess. I was a mess emotionally, physically. Every part of me was just broken. And he held me and he loved me. And he said, you know what? We can get through this. We can get past this. God is a healing God, and he loves and he restores. And there isn't anything that he can't do for you and with us. Together, we can do this. And that was really the melting part of my heart that just allowed me to just say, okay, God, let's try this. Let's do this. And it wasn't fairy tale butterflies and roses and Care Bears. It was hard. That journey was not an easy journey. But we fought for what we wanted for our future and for our family. So we went to marriage counseling and really did all the things that we knew that we possibly could do to put us back together and heal us. And we did. We took the journey on and we did the work, and God miraculously put us back together. We are best friends. We have fun. We have dates and adventures. And I can't imagine anybody else being my purpose partner but him. He is my life, and I love him. And it was God that just literally, it takes two people. I tell everybody, they want the miraculous, and they're like, oh, I want your story. It does take two people. There's not just one person that could put in all the work and want it. It takes two people surrendered to God, completely saying, here I am, God. Do what you want to do with me, and I'll do whatever you ask me to do. And when two people are surrendered and doing it his way, then they're going to see a God outcome. That's what they're going to receive. And so we get married. We go back into ministry because I knew that was, our church was birthed out of us seeing that we wanted a church that anybody could walk into. In fact, the motto of our church is a church that cares where you're going and not where you've been. And that was birthed out of our hearts.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made, how broken you've been, how messed up, how far gone you've gone. It doesn't matter. God is waiting, and he's longing to have a relationship with you. And that's what our church was birthed out of, was our mistakes, our problems. And we want to welcome everybody into our doors that feels like there's no place for them and that there is no hope for them. God is the place, and God is the hope. And so...
yeah, the best kind of ministers are people, people say, I don't want to follow anyone that doesn't walk with a limp. And they're referring to Jacob, how he was marked by God in that battle where he wrestled.
Yeah.
And he had a limp ever since, but he was changed from that experience. And it's people who go through trials and are tested and persevere and submit their lives to God and allow God to take their brokenness and do something with it, not only does God take that person and do something beautiful with it, but from that place of pain that is now healed, he ministers through it to people who've gone through same or similar things. And I don't want to follow someone who hasn't been tested. I don't want to follow someone who hasn't been tried or someone who hasn't suffered, because how can you know what I mean? But before, there's so much more to the story, and I know I want to get into it, but I want to tap on a few things.
Okay.
From what you've just said right there. Two things. One, because I think this would help a lot of people. One of the things that was affected, and there was a lot of different factors with your marriage, and what's so important that you said is you both went through a process separately of healing. And then you had to go through a process to bring your marriage back together. And we want to tell people that we're looking at a finished product, but you said it was a lot of hard work and it was processed. But I want to talk about one of the things that affected the marriage in the beginning was that you were in a relationship with this guy and he had rejected you and you felt like you needed to prove yourself to him. And I want to talk about that because I think so many people, I can relate to that. I've dealt with rejection and I think so many people have fallen into that trap.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. I think all of us have had experiences in our life that we feel not good enough, not worthy, whatever it is. And there was an ex-boyfriend from a long time ago, and he rejected me, and I felt like every time there was something significant that would happen in my life, whether I would have a baby or something great would happen in our ministry, it was simply trying to let him see, look at what you missed out on.
Yeah.
Look at how great I am. Look at what you could have had. It was more my heart or what I was dealing with at the time, because I wanted to prove that I wasn't just a loser that you just threw away, and it really added some additional problems in my marriage because I continued to contact throughout my marriage, and it just broke my husband's heart, and he just had trust issues, and it broke him. I mean, that was one area that really broke him, and I think that was what led him down the path to making the decisions that he made. He was just empty and didn't feel like he could ever measure up or he was ever good enough.
So many people are on that wheel trying to prove that they're good enough to the people in their lives, and it's just, it never pans out.
Right.
How did you break free from the rejection you felt and was able to settle into, I am good enough to the Lord. God loves me as I am, and I don't need the approval of man. Right.
That really is it, is finding healing in my own heart of who I was actually meant to be, and it doesn't have the worth of a person that has to have the stamp of approval or the good enough. And it really was just seeing the brokenness that I had caused my husband that I just couldn't keep doing. I mean, it just was something that just broke in me, like, look at what I'm doing to this other human being just because of my pride, just because of my feeling of wanting to prove something to somebody else, which doesn't matter. And God healed my heart. He healed me. He healed my husband. He healed our marriage because of me finding my confidence in God, me finding my confidence in who really does matter. Who really does matter is him and him alone. And my husband is the only two things that really mattered, is the approval of those two people. So
that's so good. Yeah. Are you okay with talking about the abortion?
Absolutely.
What made you feel like you needed to get it? And what was your, because I think abortion is so heavily talked about these days. And I think it's important for women to hear these stories, because I think I've heard from other women, if I could just prevent women from doing it, they'd be so much happier not. Yeah. It's just a lie that they fall into. So can you kind of speak of your experience with that?
Well, I was in the middle of drug use and alcohol, and at that time, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of backstory. At that time, I had literally fallen in love with somebody that I thought was going to be my future forever. I had fallen in love with this guy that I just thought, oh, he's everything I ever wanted. This is during the divorce, of course, from Kevin. And I just thought, oh, he's it. He is my knight in shining armor. I just fell fast and hard for him. And he broke my heart. Once again, rejection. He just broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. And when he did that, I just was on a binge. I was doing bad. I was sleeping with several different guys. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't even know who the father was. I was in such a dark place.
Yeah.
I just thought, I don't know if this baby's going to even be okay, as much drugs and alcohol that's in my system right now. And I just thought, I can't bring a baby into the hopelessness that I have. I have nothing to offer this baby. And it is the lie of the enemy to give you that hopeless, that constant reel in your head, like you're not going to be a good mom. You're not going to be worthy of, bringing a child into this world, and the child's not going to be okay, and you don't even know the father, and what kind of future does this baby have? You're a mess, and it doesn't deserve to come into this world like this. And if I would have, there was part of me that really wanted to, because I had been, like a pastor's wife. It's not like I didn't know the word of God. I didn't know that. But the enemy also lies, and this was 30 years ago. There was just it was 6 weeks. This really isn't, it's just a clump. It's not a baby. But now over the years that I've seen the pictures and the visual of the progress and the development of a baby, of what it looks like, and I'm like, that is a lie. I wished I would have gone to somewhere where they would have done a sonogram or something that would have just made me realize and recognize, no, this is a life that you are ending. It doesn't deserve that. Whether I would have kept it or whether I wouldn't have, give the baby a chance. Give it life. And there was torment and pain from that for years and years and years. It was horrible to try to overcome. But, and I am dead set helping women making a different choice because of the pain that I've experienced, the torment in your mind, and just the regret of what I did, that the baby deserved a chance and a life. And I will never know that, but I know that God redeems, and I believe it was her. I believe she's in heaven waiting for me, and she's with her brother. And, it's just, that's the only way that God can redeem a story.
Yeah, he can. And I'm just so thankful for you sharing that, because I know I've just talked to different women about it. And I think when women tell their stories, it helps other women, and maybe women who might be on the fence and they're thinking about it. And I think if they can hear for someone who's lived life, say, this is horrible. You think in the moment you're doing maybe even the right thing, like what this hopeless, there's no future for this baby, but it's like, it's not worth it. Yeah. And it's worth, I wish I would have given this baby life. And I've heard that from women over and over and over again. So thank you for sharing that, because I know it's hard to talk about. So you go to California, you had the abortion.
Yeah, I had the abortion. Then me and my husband, we actually started dating. We started becoming friends. And
he started loving you.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say. When you love
me.
people with a supernatural love that does not make sense, which your husband told me, it was a supernatural love from God.
Yeah.
It was a grace that he gave to help bring y'all back together. But when you're loved, when it doesn't make sense, that brings transformation to people. So you guys work through, I think I've tapped on the other two things I want to do. So pick up with your story. You guys get back together. We just heal as a family. We do our marriage counseling. We just become whole again. And then in 1997, we started The Rock. And 4 months after starting The Rock, we have a horrific car accident that... Oh, I didn't know it was so close to you starting the church.
4 months after we started
How long
the church.
was it like a healing? Did y'all get married and you had like a healing process for a while and then you started the church?
It was about 3 years of us getting back together, healing, counseling, and then starting the church. It was about a 3-year process. So you
guys became whole people.
Yes.
More whole, more healed. And then it was time. Because God was calling you back.
Right.
Were you nervous to go back in?
Absolutely. There was a whole journey of, who do you think you are? Like, you have gone... Do you know your story? Do you think people will ever follow you as a leader in the church? I mean, I knew I could sit in the pew, but I was like, but to get up front and feel like I have a place there that could possibly speak to people. But I recognize in the Bible that's the exact people that God wants us to use. Like,
true.
He used Rahab, He used the woman at the well, He used all these stories right in the middle of their mess. He didn't just go, well, wait till you're cleaned up and then I can use. In the middle of their mess, He's like, you need to be used of God because you have a story and you can help other people. And that's what I wanted to be. So we started the church. 4 months after starting the church, in the car accident, my whole face was completely crushed. I had to have 2 surgeries that cut me from ear to ear and pulled my face completely off. They completely took cartilage from my nose to graft me a new nose because I didn't have any cartilage left in my nose. They put plates and screws around my eyes. They cut me inside my jaws to put plates here to reattach my jaws because it was completely detached. And I had plates and screws on my neck and 14-inch rods down my back.
Oh.
I mean, I went through one surgery after another surgery after another surgery.
You had broken vertebrae?
Yeah, I had 5 broken vertebrae in my back and neck. So 2 were, I have plates and rods holding all 5 of those rods and plates for my back. And then, of course, I had 2 reconstructive surgeries for my face. But in that accident, my 9-year-old twin son, Brandon, was killed as well. So as bad as my face and my body and everything was broken, it was no comparison to the brokenness and the thing that my heart was experiencing. My emotions were just wrecked at that point in time, that I didn't think I could ever breathe again or live again or smile again or laugh again. But I had to hold on to Jesus. I had to praise my way through it because there's moments where you don't know how you're going to get past this day. And I just had to put my praise and worship on and just say, God, without you, I can't make this day. And I actually focused on my boys. My boys were the purpose that I got up every single day, because some parents forget that there are still living children that they need to give attention to. Their focus goes to the child that's gone, and the ones that are living are like, wait, where am I? Do I not matter? You can't even get up and get dressed because I don't matter, that you are still a mom to me. And that became my goal, and my focus was I'm gonna keep pushing on, and I'm gonna keep living for my boys and be the healthiest mom that I can be for them.
And you found out in the hospital that your son had not made it, and you were in a deep, recovery. I mean, barely.
I was 48 hours. I was unconscious, but then when I did become conscious, my husband walked in, and I'm in morphine drips and tubes and all the stuff. And he walks in, and I just asked him, I said, how is Brandon? And he just started immediately shaking his head, crying. And I was like, I just knew. He didn't have to say a word. I knew. And I start trying to get out of bed. I'm pulling the tubes and screaming, and I'm throwing up. I know that's kind of gross to say, but I just was out of control. I just thought if I could get to him, I could save him. And they came in and stabbed me with morphine and just knocked me out so I wouldn't hurt myself. And so they just had to sedate me. But it was the worst moment of my life.
And you weren't able to go to the gravesite, and you went to the funeral in...
Yeah, they gave me a 2-hour pass. My husband actually fought for that. They weren't even going to let me go do that. But he fought and fought for me to be taken by ambulance for a 2-hour pass to be able to go and lay on the front row of the church for the funeral.
Wow.
But then they immediately took me by ambulance back, and I couldn't do the graveside or anything else.
So after that experience, you didn't really get the closure that you needed because you weren't able to go to the gravesite and stuff like that. And so you were processing and struggling with that. Can you tell how God helped bring you closure?
Yeah. Well, everybody in the family got to go say goodbye to Brandon while he was still in the hospital.
I didn't know that.
And he was in a separate hospital than I was. And I was in too critical of a condition to be able to go and say my goodbyes to him. So that was the closure that I was like, I didn't even get to see him and say my goodbyes to him. And so there was a moment that I was really feeling sorry for myself and really down and just somewhat sad. Just, why am I still here? I am in so much pain, and I knew I had more surgeries that I was going to have to go through. And I was like, God, why didn't you just let me go? Why am I here? And God spoke to my heart, like, there's purpose for you to be here, and don't miss that purpose. Don't get up one day without knowing that there's a reason that I left you here. And I've made that my life's goal now. God, what do you have for me today? I don't want to miss that purpose. So I didn't want to get up one day and waste a breath. Like, there's not one day that there's not purpose that we're here on earth for. You just have to look for it. Keep your eyes open to what is my purpose today, God. And that's my prayer every morning. God, what is it that you have for me today that you want me to accomplish and do for you? And that has kept me going every single day since then. But that specific time, I went to sleep, and there was a knock at the back door. And so I went and I opened the back door, and there was my son, Brandon. I was like, shocked, like, oh my God, you're back. You're here. How is this possible? And he just looked at me with this cute little smile. He's like, he let me come see you for a little while. And I was like, I don't care. Just come here. And so I grabbed him and I carried him over to the couch and I looked at his little face and I was like, Brandon, I miss you so much. I just want to go be with you. He goes, I know, but it's just going to be a little while. And I said, are you okay? How are you doing? Are you okay? And he just looked at me, and at that moment, he started smiling, and there was this glow around him. His whole head and face just radiated with this joy and this bright light around him. And he just said, it is wonderful, Mommy. You can't imagine how wonderful it is. And I just was like, at that moment, my mommy's heart it melted. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen Brandon. He was always happy, but I've never seen him this happy. I've never seen this kind of joy in my son's face. And I just thought, he's okay. He's okay without his mommy. I thought, he's running the streets of gold, wondering where I'm at, but he's with Jesus and he's okay. He's absolutely better than he's ever been. And it just gave this mommy's heart closure. And so I was just at that moment able to take him in my arms and I rocked him and I kissed his little forehead and I ran my fingers through his hair and I sang to him and I loved on him. It felt like all night long. And then the sun started coming up through the living room window. And he told me when the sun came up, I had to go back. And so I said, okay. And so I walked into the back door and I kissed his little forehead and I shut the door. And when I shut the door, immediately I woke up. And I was like, that was a dream. That couldn't have been a dream. I know I was with Brandon. Nobody to this day could ever convince me that I didn't have the experience of being with my son that night. I mean, I felt him. I smelt his hair. I ran my fingers through his hair. I felt his skin. I'm like, he was with me. I was like, that was a gift from God for this mommy's heart to be able to move past that point.
That's so good. I just love how God knows what we need.
Yeah.
And he was able to give you that experience. And when he was saying, he let me come see you for a while, he was talking about Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just, I don't know, it's such a cool story. And I just love it. You have a new book.
Yes.
Where you talk about, because there are more stories than this.
So many stories.
Talk about the book and what the motivation, like what was your heart behind it and your intention for people reading it?
Well, of course, I've been writing the story of my life my whole life. And I didn't have one of those vision boards and dreams, I want to write a book. That wasn't my dream. But I did know that my journey has healing in it. I did know that everything that I've been through has purpose.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to waste that purpose. So whether it's from a little girl that was abused to the rejection, to finding yourself in a dark place of feeling lost, or you can't find your way out, you're in addiction, you need freedom, whatever it is, to a marriage that you're living in emptiness and loneliness and pain, and you don't have any answers and you don't know how to make it better, to losing a child and the depth of pain and despair that comes from that, to a lot of other things that the story we didn't have time to talk about today, but there is so much in this journey that I said, there's brokenness, there's pain, there's loss, there's every story. I pray that I can give them the answers through God's word. And he's given me tools of how to get a marriage to a different place, how to heal a brokenness of a relationship or a broken heart when you've lost somebody or whatever it is. I didn't want it to just be a story, me telling my story. I wanted there to be steps. And I wanted there to be freedom to be found and salvation to be found, to know that there is salvation on the other side of it. There's hope. There's not one person hopeless. There's not one person too lost, too gone, too messed up for God to redeem them. No marriage is too far gone that God cannot turn it around and bring it back, because nobody was more miserable and hated each other more than me and my husband. That's just point and simple. That we hated each other. And for us to be so in love and
still in love. I just saw y'all.
Still in love and adventurous together and having fun together in life. And I wanted to give that hope to somebody else, because it's not me. There's nothing special about me. It's about God. It is all to point to him, not me. And if they just give him a chance, and it's a life surrendered. That's one thing that I know, that it's a life surrendered and a life trust, that I have to fully trust in him every step of the way, no matter what we go through in life. I want to say the book is written, and I don't want any more chapters to be added to my story because I'm done. But thank you, Jesus, that when we give God the pen of our life, he is the one that finishes our story. And I'm just praying that I can help somebody rewrite their story if they're in the middle of a mess, and help them come to the end where God can do something great and point people to Jesus through their own story.
I love that. In the book, the title is?
It's Not Beyond Hope, because there's not a marriage beyond hope. There's not a life beyond hope. There's not a broken heart beyond hope. He is our hope. So whatever you find yourself in, a hopeless situation, it's not beyond hope. God's got you.
That's so beautiful. And I mean, I just don't even know what else to say. I mean, that your life is a life about how God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purposes. And God took everything and worked it for your good. And he's made a beautiful picture, from he takes the broken pieces and he weaves like a beautiful tapestry together. And there is hope for those, no matter how dark of a situation they're in. I love that. For people who want to get the book, where can they get it?
At melissagoff.com. And I'm sure they'll show that. But I say that this book is not for the religious. It's not for the perfect person. It's not for those that think that they've got it all together and they have the perfect Instagram family. It's for the people that you've been praying for. It's to put it in the hands of somebody that you're trying to help them get through grief, or help them break addictions, or help them get to the other side of their darkness. That's who this book is for, and I pray that it gets in those right hands of those people. That's my prayer.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story.
Thank you. I loved it.
Yes, and you're beautiful, and your story is an encouragement, and I know people will be blessed hearing it.
I appreciate it.